This is Understandable Politics. Hello! Today we conclude our series of programs called The World Speaks, focusing on Asia. A region that, like Africa, was under Western oppression for many years, is now gaining political independence and economic weight. Our journey's geography includes Indonesia and Vietnam. Politicians, businessmen, and public figures direct speech about Belarus, about the main points.
Hello, Belarus. Hello, Belarus. Hello, Belarus.
Hello, Belarus.
Hello, Belarus. It's Belarus.
We hope that Belarus can have joint production with Indonesia here.
His Excellency Mr. Lukashenko is a very strong man, a strong leader who greatly respects his people. He has been promoting development of Belarus for many years.
Mr. Lukashenko I see is a great leader of Belarus, very strong and principled. He's a very kind person. When I was in Minsk, I met him personally.
I still remember his words. Never give up the beloved.
We cannot ignore the potential of the EAEU region. It has a market of 450 million.
I highly appreciate Belarus's prospects and believe that trade with Vietnam can significantly increase.
You have technology, you have many years of experience in developing a very dynamic agricultural system. We can cooperate. Some countries, I don't want to name specifically, play football. Every time you start to understand the essence of the game, they change the goalposts and rules.
We in Vietnam do not support sanctions.
Belarus under Lukashenko's presidency will be a very strong country in the future.
The president of Belarus has repeatedly spoken about the importance of maintaining food security. In simpler terms, feeding his people. For Indonesia, with 280 million people living on 14,000 islands, this task is a real challenge, as it is for neighboring Vietnam, which has not yet restored all the lands damaged by chemicals dropped by the American military since the U.S. war.
Food security is a crucial issue for us. For example, we need one of the most important components in fertilizer production, potassium. It is very important for us, and we import it from many countries, including Belarus. And we can increase our potassium imports from Belarus. We don't have such fertilizer on our land. We also don't have phosphorites. Both Indonesia and its 280 million residents need food security. And to achieve this goal, we need to increase productivity. And productivity is closely linked to fertilizers and other agricultural resources. So agriculture is one of the areas where we can cooperate. Perhaps also in engineering and others. We need your help here.
Food security is a big problem for Indonesia. I think this is where countries like Belarus, with technology, agriculture, and machinery, can help. This is an area where cooperation between our countries can take place. We need to develop a more reliable agricultural system. Increase the potential of the agricultural sector. I think we also need to mechanize and modernize our equipment to solve some of these food security issues. And work and cooperate with other countries to meet these needs. You have technology, you have many years of experience in developing a very dynamic agricultural system. We can cooperate, use some of your equipment, and learn how you conduct your agriculture, understand how we can jointly develop and create a cooperation model beneficial to both countries.
I highly appreciate Belarus's prospects and believe that trade between Belarus and Vietnam can significantly increase. We have three main directions: economy, investment, and tourism. Ho Chi Minh City greatly values investments in high technology and heavy industry.
I was in Minsk and I saw many large buffaloes or bison. Many bison. I was at the Belarus industrial plant. I drove a big tractor with huge tires. I saw Belarus as an advanced country, especially in technology. We hope that Belarus can have joint production with Indonesia here. It can be a hub or access to the Southeast Asian market. And I see great potential in this kind of cooperation. For example, one of Belarus's specializations is massive tires. And we are the largest rubber exporters, so we can complement each other. We can have such joint production and be mutually beneficial to each other.
Indonesia is now among the top 15 largest economies in the world. The country's GDP shows a steady growth of 5% annually. However, the capital's skyscrapers should not be misleading. The standard of living in the country is not uniform. Only 10% of residents have high incomes. About 15% live below the poverty line. Their expenses do not exceed $2 a day.
Indonesia has recently been showered with complimentary assessments. A new industrial country of the G20, a new Asian tiger, a regional leader, and a future giant of the world economy. Much of the economic growth is attributed to former President Joko Widodo. During his tenure, the industrial cluster grew by almost a third. 25 new airports were built, and many farmers were transitioned from plows to technical schools.
And here's an interesting point. The leader who gave Indonesia an economic leap is often compared to Lukashenko. Both started working in agriculture. Both come from the people and are not bureaucratic leaders. Both are used to not ignoring problems, but solving them themselves.
Belarus was part of the USSR, and Indonesia was very close to the USSR at that time. And we never had any disputes or disagreements with each other. And your country's parliament has always supported us at all times, and we are very grateful to you for that. We support each other. His Excellency Mr. Lukashenko is a very strong man, a strong leader who greatly respects his people. He has been promoting the development of the Republic of Belarus for many years. We need such a leader with a confident position. This does not mean he is a dictator. Strong means decisive in his policies for the benefit of his people.
It's nice to hear that we share the same values in believing in God, advocating for social justice, and equal development. The values we share are very correct. And I think this is more relevant these days as democracy is now challenged by many parties interested in weakening this type of values. Mr. Lukashenko I see as a great leader of Belarus, very strong and principled. He is a very kind person. Also, when I was in Minsk, I met him personally. He is a very kind person, and I believe that Belarus, under Lukashenko's presidency, will be a very strong country in the future.
I saw photos in the newspapers. It was very sad for me. The head of the country, the head of state, and a weapon in his hands, and he showed courage and legality to defend the country, to protect what the people have created over a long time. I still remember his words. At some event, he said he would never give up his beloved country. I still remember. It's very... Many people consider him a very strong leader. I am very glad that recently everything has been better in Belarus. The economy is developing and political stabilization has been maintained. I always think that difficulties, especially economic difficulties, are only temporary for you. You have an intellectual people, an educated people, and you have great potential for the country's development. And always without journalists, Belarus will develop as underdeveloped than Jim.
In conversations with speakers, the topic of sanctions pricks inevitably comes up, with which the West is cutting world trade, logistics, business, and much more. Local residents, to put it mildly, are not thrilled by such actions. And can you really support something that destroys long-standing ties and ricochets across the continent?
For us, it is very important to find ways we can cooperate to avoid secondary sanctions. In the context of Belarusian-Indonesian relations, we really need the support of both governments to see in which areas we can cooperate. Agriculture and education are some of the areas where we can start mutually beneficial cooperation. The Eurasian Economic Union and, for example, Indonesia are what we call an unconventional bloc. We have never engaged in such cooperation on such a large scale. So here we need to dig a little deeper. But if you dig deeper, you will find them. New logistical connections that we need to explore, as the logistical complexities present worldwide are extremely contradictory. Today, if I want to send a product from Indonesia to Europe, no ship will carry it because of the very high insurance cost. There are security issues with passing through the Red Sea. Ships can be captured or something else can happen to them. The cost is very high, but there are alternative routes. We can go through Central Eurasian countries to distribute our products. Thus, there are many aspects we need to study more thoroughly.
We cannot ignore the potential of the EAEU region. It has approximately 450 million markets. We also have a large market, 280 million. The rationality of this cooperation lies in the fact that we must have mutually beneficial conditions for the two regions. I also know that Vietnam already has its free trade with the EAEU. Now, we are also waiting for a similar mechanism because there are many advantages to be gained from this cooperation. One of them is that, especially in the current economic and geopolitical conditions, at the moment we must ensure the security of our global supply chains. So this is one of the ways we can use to maintain global production and distribution chains between our two regions, which are still connected.
The main prospect of Indonesia is its population structure. Just imagine, almost half are school children. They will become the workforce and the main driver of the economy in the next 20 years. And they predict quite a bit for it. 4th place in the world.
The topic of food security, as we have already said, is a special direction in Indonesia. The country has a huge domestic demand for goods. One of the most populous countries in the world consumes more every year. It's not surprising that the Ministry of Agriculture here is called the second most important. It employs 10,000 people, as there are about 40 million farmers in Indonesia. Industrial downstreaming is also about Indonesia, opening the maximum number of productions. In our terms, import substitution.
The local GDP volume is 1.3 trillion. As they say, this money needs to be mastered. The queue of major investors for the lucrative market. China, South Korea, USA, there are no problems with partners here. Rather the opposite. Jakarta itself chooses whom to deal with. And Western approaches to understanding the world are not always shared here.
Some countries, I don't want to name specifically, play football. Every time you start to understand the essence of the game, they change the goalposts and rules. Therefore, it is very difficult for us to come to mutually beneficial cooperation due to such constant changes in the rules. I think your president and ours have an understanding of the clear parameters of our cooperation. No one will say they are better than another. We are equal. We will sit down and talk face to face. You know, we've had experiences where we were in unequal positions. Someone sits in a big chair and someone else on a small stool. Something like that. Belarus is a reliable country with clear advantages that we know about. And as I mentioned earlier, we can use these advantages in agriculture and energy. There are many opportunities we can work with. Unfortunately, in the past, we focused more on Western Europe. However, now, due to global challenges, we are more focused on non-traditional markets for us, like Eastern Europe, Central Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Markets we need to explore.
We are developing relationships with reflective friends, partners, including Belarus. We always treat the people of the former Soviet Union with love and respect. And we always want to have a good relationship. And of course, we are currently facing many difficulties due to the global halt. But, in Vietnam, we do not support odds against any countries. I believe that based on the given friendship between our two countries, we will seek options and approaches to overcome difficulties and develop relationships.
I hope this situation won't last too long, that these are temporary difficulties. But we have to think about the real situation. We don't want sanctions against other countries, including yours. But depending on the territory, nations have become more dependent on each other. I believe wars will soon pass, including the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. Of course, it affects energy and food security and has a very negative impact on trade. When this ends, we will have a more favorable environment for trade with the Eurasian Union countries. I think trade is very important and vital. And if we can have a free trade agreement between our two regions, or Indonesia and the 5 Eurasian countries, it can promote greater trade and exchange. It's beneficial for investment. We can improve the connection between our peoples, which in turn can help develop other areas such as tourism, raw material production, high technology, digital technology, and so on. We need to exchange more people, communicate more. We must know each other well, because if we get to know each other better, our cooperation will develop faster.
This is the perspective of Indonesia and Vietnam, confirming that all Western tales about Belarus's isolation are nothing but clumsy fakes. In 4 episodes of our series The World Speaks, we gave a voice to people thousands and even tens of thousands of kilometers from Minsk on 4 continents to hear their truth genuine, not influenced by Washington or Brussels money. Believe me, the world is bigger and much friendlier to us than dishonest journalists try to tell you, and the West's pocket funds. I hope this will be clear.
Goodbye.